Well, on to our next interview now. Parliament will today deliberate on the National Gambling Amendment Bill. This bill will pave a way for the amendment of the National Gambling Act of 2004. Among other provisions, the bill also ensures that the winnings will only be delivered if the National Gambling Regulator is satisfied that the winner is not a minor at the time of the relevant gambling. Now, this also highlights concerns around the increase of teenage online sports betting in schools across the country. But how prevalent is underage online gambling? Well, to discuss this further, we're joined by Claire Heckrath, who's InfoQuest Managing Director. Claire, good to have you. Thanks so much for joining us for this.
Good morning to you and your viewers.
So we're very focused on gambling and the dangers of gambling, particularly amongst adults. But underage online gambling and betting, this seems to have increased amongst teenagers. Talk to us. How prevalent is it in schools across the country?
Definitely becoming more prevalent. And we recently did a survey, a follow-up on a survey that we did a year ago. So we are tracking, how prevalent it is. And we have been looking at the youth market, especially because they are being targeted. And it's becoming more prevalent, especially the online sports betting. So it isn't broken down into what kind of sports betting, but sports betting is becoming definitely more prevalent amongst the youth.
Yeah. I mean, so is there a particular common profile of teenagers addicted to online sports betting? And from what age do you find that they're actually getting introduced to it?
We know that it's young, but our survey only covered 18 to 34. But from the responses we got, they had been doing it for several years. So it was definitely underage. They started when they were underage. And by the looks of it, there is an economic factor. They are looking for extra money. They also want to help their household. So they think that gambling is going to help. And it's also, they don't see it as betting or gambling. They call it gaming. So it's actually a fun activity to them.
And this is the reality. And I can imagine, I'm loath to say it, but I can imagine that some teenagers are introduced by their parents or an adult. And this bypasses age regulations by using their IDs. Talk to us about the dangers linked to this and how are they able to hide this addiction? Because it's got to start somewhere.
It's difficult to hide, and especially I think when they start getting into debt, and they are getting into debt. So it's impacting the household. It's impacting parents who have to then try and cover their gambling debts. So it is becoming a problem, and I actually can't speak to what needs to be done about it. There are gambling helplines and that kind of thing, but a lot of the time, our youth don't see it as a problem. They want to get out of it, but they don't really know the avenues they can follow to deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm reading just a little bit of information that's come out, and they're basically saying that students between the ages of 14, especially in Gauteng and the Eastern Cape, have reported betting their lunch money and pocket money. Yeah. I imagine so, that's the way it does on apps like, and I don't want to shame, but I mean, this is just what studies are showing on apps, betting apps like Betway. I mean, yeah. How is it allowed? How do they get through the system?
We believe that it's probably through using parents' IDs or other IDs. Yeah. But I think there should be more legislation to deal with that. You shouldn't be able to, I think it should be a deeper a look into it, because it is problematic. How are they bypassing it? And they are.
Yeah, and that's the reality, is that they are, because it's out there. I mean, I hear it being spoken about with a lot of the young kids at schools. But what's more alarming is when you studied and looked at the patterns, it was found that this is actually happening during school hours.
And I think that's the thing as well, is that they also see this, the youth especially see it as a way to get money. They're mostly losing, but they don't see it as that. When they get a little bit of a cash payment, usually they don't actually cash out. They put that money straight back into the gambling activity. So they're not really winning.
Yeah, no one. Unfortunately, with gambling, you never really do win. But one of the big issues, and I think that it does this speak to the complexity of youth unemployment in the country, is that, you know, the youth can't get regular jobs, you know, as they would. And I know these are school-going ages, so it's perhaps a different thing, but when you're seeing high unemployment, you're seeing your parents not working, you're seeing the fact that you can't get a job, and then suddenly a friend of yours, you know, went onto this betting app, they won some money, and you think it's easy, so you go that route. Is that perhaps what fuels this as well?
Yes, there is peer pressure, and I think also that people are being targeted everywhere you look, and the algorithms, if they're on a Facebook app or something like that, those betting adverts pop up all the time, so they are targeted, and it's quite difficult to say no to. And our survey actually also looked at how youngsters could remove themselves from the activity, and it's quite difficult because of the peer pressure. And they often said they can't control their desire to engage in these activities, so that's a problem.
Yeah, and this is something incredibly difficult, because at the end of the day, you know, you see this happening, you know it's happening, but it's hard to regulate it if there are no regulations in place that actually compel schools and parents to monitor learners against online sports betting. Does this exist? I know you were saying there's a problem with legislation, but does it exist for schools and parents?
I doubt it. We didn't actually look into that, but we have been trying to do research on that as well. I don't think there's enough. I think there is a top line kind of legislation, but I don't think it goes deep enough.
Yeah.
Not for our youth.
Increasing the legal age, I know we speak to this. I mean, it was the same conversation about increasing the legal age of drinking, which is at 18, gambling also 18, moving it to 21. Will this help? Will it discourage school children from gambling?
It's difficult to say. I think it probably won't. Not also while there is unemployment and while people are actually going hungry.
And that's the raw, honest truth, unfortunately. So, to the point at hand, today is actually the day that Parliament will deliberate on the National Gambling Amendment Bill. This will pave the way for the amendment of the National Gambling Act of 2004. This, I imagine, is a welcome move, and what are you hoping will come through this?
Well, I think all I can say is that I think it needs to help not only the youth, but adult gamblers as well. There's people are losing money. They're actually budgeting to gamble. So I think there needs to be a lot more.
Oh, there really does. And I mean, when you say they're budgeting to gamble, the table always wins. And that's unfortunately the way it is. I mean, when you speak to people that have been addicted to gambling and what they go through, I mean, and especially now with children and kids, you can't. And you don't know what your kids are doing on your devices. And I think we've been talking to that all week, as they have these devices in their hands. And what comes with this is incredibly dangerous. From some of the research that you've done, I mean, ages, I'm reading that as young as 10, kids are gambling.
We believe that they do start young. Our research, unfortunately, can't go to that age group to ask the questions, but we will try looking into that in the coming months. Yeah. But from the 18-year-olds that we sampled in our survey, they've been doing it for many years. And a lot of them had actually stopped gambling and said that they were so lucky that their parents had actually forbidden them to. So, but they'd been doing it for years. So I think they probably do start as young as 10.
All right. Well, listen, we'll leave it there. This is a very disturbing story. Claire Heckrath talking to us, InfoQuest Managing Director, about the dangers of underage online sports betting, which has become prevalent with school children, sometimes as young as 10 years of age, that embarking on this gambling, thinking they're going to make lots of money. Sakina, I mean, it's frightening. You know, you'd think going into a casino in those days, but in this point, it's not. You can hide behind your device at any age and do anything, and that's what scares me.
And that's what you mentioned, following on from yesterday's conversation about, you know, the chat rooms.
Those channels.
And the channels on WhatsApp, and now listening to this morning's conversation, we really need to pay attention to these devices. Because it's akin to handing a loaded gun to your child, because they can go anywhere.
100%.